right. Well, let's get you on the ship. How was embarkation and what type of cabin did you book? Good God, that was awful.
Start it again. That's going to be too hard to edit. I don't want to edit that.
All right, let me give you an awful answer then as well.
All right, let's get you on the...
Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show all the way down in the fires of Mordor, down in Florida. How are you doing today, Chrissy?
It is so hot, Steve. Like, actually, the oceans are burning. It's ridiculous.
And I know I hate to be the podcast that starts talking about the weather, but I mean, it is kind of crazy. I know
Joe Chung does make fun of us for that.
Yeah, you and Steve and Lake are all getting ready for what, Princess Half? Is that what's coming up next? What's next?
Wine and Dine.
Wine and Dine. Sorry, I don't know. I run Disney as well as I should, but Wine and Dine half, and I've been trying to get some runs in down there, and it's pretty tough, huh?
It is. My first training run was officially today because my program that I use was supposed to start next week, but I will be sort of living it up next week, and so I decided I will make week one today. And so I just did my first 3-mile run on the treadmill because it's already too hot.
And I'd like to give a shout out to Joe Chung since you brought his name up, because he was just down in New Zealand cheering on the U.S. women's national team. I was able to see that ball bounce off the post, I guess, in the final game before they went into the round of 16. And unfortunately, they were eliminated. But we are going to turn to not soccer today, but or football, as it should be called. We're going to turn back to cruising. And I'd like to welcome back to the show all the way over in England, Mr. Towler. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks. Hi, Steve. Hi, Christy.
Hi. We really are spanning the time zones today. We have Pacific Coast, East Coast, and
Greenwich Mean Time.
Exactly.
British summertime.
British summertime. Well,
is that what it's called?
Yeah, we're GMT +1 right now.
I like it.
Well, for those who have missed John's voice or have not heard it before, we'd like to just give a shout out that you were the very first guest on the DCL podcast back at episode 7 years ago. We were able to sail with your family over to Norway, and I can't believe it's been that long already. You've been on the show several times, but not since 2021 when you came on to talk about the UK staycation cruises. When I think were those the first ones that started sailing? I guess.
Yeah,
Christy.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
It's been 2 years. What happens to time?
I don't know. Blake's almost taller than you. So that's what happens to time
right now.
Anyways, you're one of the first Disney sailings back to start up COVID. Welcome back to the podcast, John. And you just let us know something that we didn't know, that you've actually listened to every one of our episodes.
I have. Do I get a medal or a jacket or something?
You can have another magnet if you'd like.
Well, I have plenty already that you sent me, but yeah, that would be great.
I think Amber's still waiting on her gold jacket as well. So once we get that, we definitely need to send something to you. But welcome back to the show, John.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be back on the show. You said 2021 was the last time I was here, which is right. I really should have been on the show last year as well, because we did cruise in the summer of 2022. And we booked some really exciting stuff last year. We booked back-to-back cruises, an 11-night to Norway and Iceland, bit of a bucket list cruise, followed by a Northern Europe cruise. So 18 nights in total we booked last year. Exciting stuff. But back then you had to test for COVID in between the cruises. And unfortunately, all four of us tested positive after the first 11-night cruise. So they unceremoniously kicked us off the ship. So we had a great time on the first cruise, but a disappointing end to it all. And I decided I didn't really want to relive the trauma on a podcast. You were super understanding about it all, Steve. So that was my story of the summer of 2022. Anyway, no more testing for us now, unless you're going to Australia, but let's not talk about that. So it was a whole lot less stressful this year.
The testing part of it has really taken a lot of stress, especially, man, you remember that, Christy, when you had to you didn't know if you're going to get on the ship. You're sitting out there in the parking garage in Port Canaveral, waiting to see if you're going to hopefully be negative.
I know, but you know what? I was just looking through pictures and God, I miss the empty ships. Like, because I was trying to find some picture to post. Like, I needed a princess picture. Still haven't found it. But I was going back through all the ones from cruising the last 3 years. And oh my God, it was different. But
It definitely was.
I kind of like the empty ship.
Well, the good thing is that they're full. And so that means that very full. So that means hopefully that third ship's going to come after the Treasure. And we'll see where Disney Cruise Line and the cruising industry goes after that. But yes, we're also happy that we're back to cruising normally. So which cruise did you guys go on this summer, John? Which one did you guys book?
So that's we being myself, my wife, 2 teenage boys, we booked a 7-night repositioning cruise starting in Barcelona and finishing in Southampton, which is on the south coast of England, with stops in Cadiz, which is in Spain, Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, Vigo, which is another city in Spain, and Le Havre in France. And of course, this cruise was on the Disney Dream, which came over to Europe for the first time this summer, and our first time on the Dream.
You've been on the Fantasy before, right? So this is the second time on a Dream class ship. Well, great. I'm glad. The other thing I'm glad that you're on is like, I've never noticed it Cadiz or Cadiz for some reason. And I'm glad that you're here to help us make the correct pronunciation.
I'm sure if you're Spanish, neither of those are right, but we say Cadiz.
All right. So you guys take off to Barcelona. Did you fly in the day before or did you spend some time in the city this time?
We flew in on the Wednesday. So the cruise was departed on the Saturday. So we had a couple of full days to explore the city first. We'd been to Barcelona once before in 2018, but only had half a day that time. So it was great to be able to explore a bit more this time around. And we did all of the usual tourist things. We walked around La Rambla. We walked around the old part of the city. We did the Sagrada Familia. We did Park Güell, which is where a lot of the Antonio Gaudi stuff is. We went right up onto the hill, up onto Montjuic Park, where you can look down over Barcelona. You take a cable car up there. That's kind of cool. So we did all the tourist things. Barcelona's nearly always hot in the summer and not as hot as Florida, I'm sure, Christy, right now. But for us English guys, it was hot. It was kind of 30 degrees Celsius, pretty warm for us. So my pro tip is, like a lot of Mediterranean cities this time of year, just pace yourself. Start out as early as you can in the day when it's not so warm. Don't try and pack too much in, as you just run out of energy by the end of the day. And we kind of ran out of energy by the end of that second day. But we had a great time in Barcelona, really enjoyed ourselves, had some excellent food, and it's a really beautiful city.
I think that's what we kind of did in Rome too. We'd spend a lot of time in the morning doing stuff, and then it's great to go back, just kind of chill out. When in the heat of the day, the kids can play on their phone, catch up on all their TikTok videos and all that type of stuff, and then go out and find some food in the evening. What kind of food? I think everybody like knows Mexican food, and I mean knows like Italian food. Spanish, you think of tapas. What kind of food did you guys have there that was interesting?
We did mix it up actually. On the 3 nights we had there, we had Spanish one night, so we had a paella, which was really, really good. So we wanted to make sure we ate something that was authentic. We went Indian one night, just kind of a bit left field, bit out there. But the Indian food was great, really good. And then we had Italian on the 3rd night. So the food was good.
Where did you stay?
We booked an apartment, which was about Plaça de la Catalunya, which is the main square at one end of the Ramblas. We were about 10 minutes away from there. 10 minutes walking. So we were really close to the center of the city. Had a 2-bed apartment, and it was great. It was a really good base. We were 2-minute walk from the nearest hop on hop off bus stop. And it's on one of the main shopping streets. So Louis Vuitton and all those guys were just around the corner. Not that we went in there, not that we spent all that money, but it was, as a location, it was really good. So if anybody's going to Barcelona and wants to reach out, I'm happy to share where we stayed. It was good.
It's nice to be able to wake up and have breakfast yourself. Is Airbnb big in England? When you say you rented an apartment, how did you guys go about it?
So Airbnb is big. As it happens, we didn't book it through. I think we booked it on booking.com, if that's a thing for you guys too.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get you on the ship then. How was embarkation and what type of cabin did you book for your family?
Embarkation was pretty smooth. We've heard some of the ports in Europe can be a bit of a zoo. It wasn't like that for us at all. Maybe because we had an early port arrival time. Our arrival time was 11:30. We arrived exactly on 11:30, and we were on the ship a little after 12, so super quick. We did see that lots of people did arrive ahead of their slot. and were having to wait outside, so they weren't letting people in early. And obviously, you're in full sunshine. There's no shade at all. So I'd really advise don't do that. Turn up when you're supposed to turn up. But very, very smooth for us. As always, we booked a deluxe family ocean view stateroom with a veranda, and we were on deck 8. Great location, cabins above, cabins below, just perfect.
How full did the ship feel?
You mentioned earlier that the ships aren't like they were 2 years ago, and it was completely full for us. 3,800 people on board, and we'd heard that the couple of cruises before ours were full too. I think yours was pretty full on the Greek Isles, wasn't it, Steve? So good news for Disney, ultimately, that they're managing to sell out that ship on the European itineraries. Great news for Disney. So it was full. It didn't feel super full. There were lots of people, but it never felt unreasonably crowded.
I guess that was the question I was just going to ask you. How did it feel overall? But so you feel like the Dream kind of handled the crowds well through this cruise?
Yeah, I thought they did. I mean, European ports, lots of people are off the ship for many hours during the day. But we never really felt like we were queuing for unreasonably in cabanas. You could always get to the food. The theatre was busy on Beauty and the Beast night. It's probably the busiest night, but it was fine. You could find a seat. So no, it was busy, but not, didn't feel crazy.
We didn't really talk about it on ours and our snippets, but I totally agree with you. With the Magic, sometimes it seemed like, especially in the morning when everybody's trying to get off, it could be really crowded in cabanas. And not that cabanas wasn't busy and crowded, but we never had a hard time finding a table throughout the Greek cruise that we did. So that was definitely a plus with the Dream. And I guess, Christy, I think that you and I can reiterate it. For those of you going to Europe next year, please do not come to the port early, because they're not letting you into the building. And just like in Rome, Civitavecchia, people were sitting outside in the hot sun for long periods of time until their numbers were called, or until their time was called.
Yeah. And to that point, next year, as of now anyway, Americans need to get a visa to go to Europe. So make sure you look that up and get your visa in time. I mean, it's like a form, and pay money, of course. And it's not very involved, but you just want to make sure you have it before you arrive at the airport.
We did put a post up on our Facebook page, but we'll definitely, as the season comes, because we're going to have to do it. So as I think about it, I'll make sure that we put that up there for next year as well. So John, I know you and your family are planners. How much did you book this time before you got on the ship?
Well, for the first time ever with Disney, we booked absolutely nothing with them in advance. And that's because we decided for this cruise, we didn't want to do that typical European thing of a whole load of really long excursions like we've done before when we've done Rome and Naples and those kind of cities. We thought we just preferred to do our own thing in all of the ports this year. So I planned plenty, just not using Disney for any of the excursions, which was a first for us.
We were texting with Nova yesterday, and she just got back. Her family's just getting back from sailing on Celebrity around the Mediterranean, and they did the same thing. And I'm thinking, especially with the longer port stays now that the Dream is spending, it just makes it so much more comfortable. So you're not as worried about getting back, by 4 or 5 o'clock, when sometimes it can be rush hour traffic, when the ship's not leaving until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I think that's what we're going to do next year too, is pick a lot of the things ourselves. What do you think, Christy?
I think that's a good idea. Give it a go.
There we go.
We loved it. We felt so relaxed throughout the whole cruise. So it really worked for us. We definitely take that approach again. I did send over our little itinerary that I'd put together for Barcelona, so she had that.
Yeah, I think too, it sort of depends, right, on the port. Like somewhere like Santorini, you have to remember that in Greece, you have to remember that you have to get to the top to the city, basically, from the port. And so sometimes taking an excursion actually solves that problem. Like last year when I did my boat tour, we went on the scary road up the mountain in a bus. So like we had a tender that took us to the opposite side of the port. And so I guess I would research the port to see what makes sense, or if it would be easy if you're going to book an excursion with somebody. So obviously there's walking around doing whatever you want, which you can do in so many of the ports. Again, do a little bit of research to figure that out. But if you're going to book an excursion with a private company, figure out how you're going to get to your meeting point and how difficult that might be.
That is a good point, and we're going to turn to your ports here in just a second, John. Because I know the answer to this one, but in this cruise, it seemed like the ship is docking right downtown, so it's pretty easy to get to. But if you go on that classic Mediterranean, some of the ports like Florence, it's 30 minutes to an hour bus ride away, so it's a little bit tougher to sometimes do things by yourself, and maybe sometimes excursions work better there. So
I think Florence is over an hour every time.
Yeah,
like I think Pisa is 30 minutes or something away, but Florence is like almost 2 hours away. So let's stick with port talk. You didn't book the Disney excursions. What did you do and how did you organize it?
I guess to your point, actually, the first thing to say is if you do like cruises where the ship docks right in the town and therefore it's easier to do your own thing, this itinerary that we had this time is a really great itinerary for you, because that's what the ship does in Cadiz, in Lisbon and Vigo. You're right in the middle of town. It was only Le Havre where there was a 30-minute walk into town. And even there, the town of Le Havre put on a free shuttle bus. So still super easy to do. So our first stop was Cadiz in southern Spain. Let me just say before I talk about Cadiz that a big highlight for me of this cruise was that on the evening on the first sea day before we got to Cadiz, we got to sail through the Straits of Gibraltar. And that's the narrow passage of sea that's at the western end of the Mediterranean. It's only 8 miles wide between Africa to the south and Europe to the north. So you feel almost as if you could reach out and touch the two continents. And the highlight of that bit was passing really close by the Rock of Gibraltar itself, which is a British territory right on the southern tip of Spain. The weather was beautiful. It was a lovely evening, and we just stood up on deck 13 for half an hour or so, took some photos and just took it all in. It was really, really special. I loved that experience.
It reminds me of going through the Straits of Messina, the couple times we did that. And I don't know what it is about going, next to land masses like that makes it so cool, but I totally agree with you. There's just something magical about it. Were you able to see the apes of Gibraltar?
No, if you had an amazing telescope, maybe you could have done it. We were too far away.
That's what I kind of figured. I get a kind of kick that there's apes up in Gibraltar. Did you know that, Christy?
Barbary apes.
No, I did not. I learned something new every day.
Google them there. Don't touch the monkey. Don't pet the bison. Don't mess with the Barbary apes.
They're probably the biggest pickpockets in Europe.
Well, that sounds awesome. John, you send us some photos, which I will definitely put up on our Facebook page. So on to Cadiz.
Yeah, so back to Cadiz, which is supposedly the oldest still existing city in the Western world, so they say. We knew that the ship docked right in the old town part of the city and that it's pretty walkable. So we figured we'd just do our own walking tour. So I'd sort of started planning that. And then as it happened, someone on the cruise group, the Facebook cruise group, put together a suggested route, which looked really good. So we decided to just use that instead. It was super hot. So we did the heading off the ship really early. We were off the ship by around 9 o'clock in the morning. We walked about 3 miles around Cadiz, through some delightful plazas, some pretty gardens. There's a star-shaped fortress that was obviously used to defend the city a couple hundred years ago. A central market, lots of fish for sale, big fish market. Then the cathedral. And it felt like a very oldie-worldy kind of city, narrow streets, tiny little shops. And I loved it. I thought it was a great, great city, really beautiful. And we were back on the ship by 11 before the heat of the day really kicked in. I loved Cadiz. Obviously, there were lots of Disney excursions available. And probably the most popular one of those was to do a day trip to the big Spanish city of Seville, which I've never been to. I hear it's really beautiful, and lots and lots of people chose that as their excursion for the day.
I actually went to the Seville when I was in the Air Force. We landed at a place nearby and we spent a day in Seville and went to the cathedral there, which was amazing, and just a beautiful city. They had the World's Fair there years ago, and they still had like a big area there that you could go and visit. But I think I would have loved to have done that. I think this is the only, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christy, this is the only cruise that's going to stop at Cadiz besides the transatlantic. So for those of you interested in seeing some of these ports. Well, from there, you're off to Lisbon next. It's become my brother's and his husband's favorite city recently. A lot of people seem to be going to Portugal. What do you guys have planned there?
I'd been to Portugal before with Caroline, but we'd only been there as tourists. So a beach holiday on the south coast, the Algarve. So first visit to Lisbon for all of us, and first time in Portugal for Sam and James. And there was another highlight as we sailed into and out of Lisbon, which was that we passed under the 25th of April bridge, slightly silly name. But the bridge is very famous because it was built by the same company that built the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and the Bay Bridge too. So it kind of feels like a cross between those two things. That was super cool. We passed under it pretty early in the morning, but we'd had an emergency announcement that morning. About 6 a.m., we were woken up by some crew member shouting "Bright Star, Bright Star, Bright Star" over the tannoy to the whole ship. So the whole ship got woken up. And that turned out to be an announcement that there'd been an injury to a crew member. So having been woken up, I thought I'd get up. So luckily I was on deck early enough to watch us pass under that bridge on our way into Lisbon. And then we went under it again just before dinner on the way back out. So that was really cool. So I think I sent you a photo of that, Steve. I've driven across the Golden Gate Bridge and the Bay Bridge, but I've never sailed under it. So that was kind of my second best.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bridge from what you said. I've never heard the Bright Star thing. That's kind of interesting that they did that. I hope the crew member was okay. I don't know if you heard anything more.
I think they were okay. Apparently it's better than Rising Star, which means somebody's died.
Yes. Well, I love that you're able to cruise. And any of those iconic bridges that you get to cruise under, this one, the San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, and then also the bridge in Vancouver as well. Yeah. When you sail to Alaska, Christy, you guys just did that.
Oh my God. And bridges are like one of my favorite things. And so watching us watching the Wonder going under the Lion's Gate or whatever it's called bridge is so cool.
That's going to be a huge bridge. Well, I mean, I can tell from the pictures for the Dream to make underneath too, because it's such a bigger ship.
Yeah, it felt kind of close, ours, and it's a double bridge, so it does trains and it does cars.
That's awesome.
Well, I love that. How did you guys actually spend your day and plan your day in Lisbon then, John?
I said we were kind of chilled out this time, but we knew that Lisbon was the one day where we wanted to do the maximum that we could because we'd never been there before. It's a capital city. There's lots of history there, so there's plenty to see and do. So I decided a few months ahead of the cruise to find a private tour guide. Lisbon's also quite a hilly city, has 7 hills. So it's not really possible to do it as a walking tour. It's too spread out, it's too hilly, it doesn't really work. So to do it properly, you need a guide and you need a driver to take you around. I ended up using a company called lisbontourguides.pt. So that's the website, lisbontourguides.pt. Really professional throughout, good communication before the cruise. They were there on time on the day. The guide gave me her WhatsApp details. The driver had a Mercedes-Benz pupil carrier, so really, really nice vehicle to take us around. And the guide was super experienced, knew the city inside out. There was still quite a lot of walking as there are parts of Lisbon, particularly the old town, where streets are narrow. It's difficult for cars to get around. But we managed to hit all of the main sites in Lisbon before we ran out of energy in the middle of the afternoon. We went to the castle of St. Jorge, where you get a great view down over the city. We walked down through the maze of tiny streets in the old town. We went past the presidential palace. We stopped off in the main shopping district, which was all rebuilt after they had a devastating earthquake in 1755, which kind of knocked most of the city down. And then we headed out to the Belém area, which is just a bit further out of town, where there's a historic tower. There's a monument to the famous explorers, the 15th and 16th centuries, people like Vasco da Gama, Ferdinand Magellan, the guys I learned about at school. Don't know whether you guys did. And then finally on to the church and the monastery of Jeronimos. So we did loads of stuff during the day. It was still hot there, so it was incredibly tiring. But I'd thoroughly recommend it as a way to see the city. Disney do offer a kind of best of Lisbon, highlights of Lisbon. But I would say if you can hire your own private guide, which I think is really easy to do in Lisbon, you do get to see more than you would on a Disney excursion. We paid €425 plus tips for the day. And I think that's really good value. You'd pay for a family of 4. You'd probably pay more than that on a Disney excursion and you'd see less.
And it's just so nice to just be with your family.
Yeah.
like your group and your driver and guide that you get to know and bond with. And it really does make for a nice day.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of got to say what sort of thing we'd like to eat for lunch and got to make that choice. So yeah, you get that flexibility as well.
And just to add on to it, with Disney, you're probably going to be in a bus with 40 to 50 people and slowing things down. And is, to your point too, probably not a choice with where you get to eat lunch and stuff like that. Plus, I mean, if you're a family who's curious, which I know that you guys are, being able to ask your guide questions as you kind of go along, you don't really get that with the bigger groups as well.
Yeah.
So then your next stop or second stop in Spain was the city of Vigo. Is that how we're saying that? Vigo? I know nothing about Vigo at all. So what did you do there?
Well, I knew nothing about Vigo either, other than it has a good football team, which is pretty minimal knowledge. But again, the lady on our Facebook group that I mentioned earlier had suggested a walking tour route for Vigo as well. So we decided we would do that. That's what we decided in advance that we were going to do. But we were feeling pretty tired by the time we arrived in Vigo. And the walking route that she'd suggested climbed up to a park, and it was a whole load of steps. And we decided that looked like it was going to require a bit more effort than we had left. So we ended up freestyling a bit in Vigo. We did some of the flatter parts of the route that she'd suggested, which kind of passed through some typical Spanish plazas along the main shopping street. But then we headed back to the ship along the waterfront, past a sculpture to the famous author Jules Verne. And Vigo felt different to Cadiz. It felt much more like a bustling modern city, you know, the sort of banks that you'd see everywhere, that sort of thing. Nothing particularly special. I was a little bit disappointed by Vigo, but hey, that's what we did. There were loads of Disney excursions, and the big full day ones from Vigo headed out to the famous pilgrimage site of Santiago de Compostela. Lots of people took bus tours out to that. So we kind of had a bit of a down day, and I don't know what time we were back on the ship, but again, before lunch.
Could you explain what Santiago de Compostela is for people who don't know?
So it's a big pilgrimage site. Saint someone, I can't remember saint who, to be honest. And lots of people do walks from there. There's a walk, I think, that goes from kind of the French border. Maybe I'm making it up slightly, but kind of call it a 14-day hike down to Santiago. And I think you can do another hike from the south up to it. So it's famous as a pilgrimage site, but it's famous as a place that people do pilgrimage walks to as well.
There was a movie that they actually made about that walk over here, which is, I was just either here nor there, but that was the first time I heard about it. And I watched it on our way to Europe a couple of years ago. I'm totally drawing a blank on it, but it is St. James the Great is who the cathedral is built for.
Okay. Good knowledge.
Yeah. And so then here's one other quick question before we turn on to your final stop. You talked about your Facebook group. It seems like you got a lot of use out of your Facebook group this time as far as information from the different ports. Is that true? Or, well, I shouldn't say, is that true? How did that help you guys? And do you often use the Facebook groups, John?
Well, we always join. So yes. And I post sometimes because we've been on, you know, we're European. So we know our knowledge of Europe's sometimes useful. And we were lucky this time. There were 2 or 3. We had a good admin who was quite chilled, but got involved when she needed to get involved. She was pretty active about getting the whole fish extender and all of those kind of things organized. We don't really engage with any of that, but that seemed to be well organized. And there were 2 or 3 really experienced cruisers who were very helpful about sharing their knowledge. And I'll say something about an event that was organized as part of the Facebook group a little bit later on when we get on to what did we actually do on the ship. So I thought it was a really good Facebook group this time. There was nobody fell out. Everybody was being really helpful. So it was a good group.
Chrissy, what are your thoughts about Facebook groups? I tend to find that, especially in Europe, it really helps with the ports. And then for first-time cruisers, you know, if you're going, you know, like down to the Wish or something like that, there's a lot of good information, especially for your first-time cruisers in those Facebook groups as well. And don't be afraid to ask questions. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. The only comment I have is that sometimes it can make you feel like you're missing out some of the Facebook groups. So I always say join, but sort of maybe take the commentary with a grain of salt or filter it a bit. Because especially as a first-time cruiser, people are going to think, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, Palo brunch, and can I get a cabana? I mean, no, you can't as a first-time cruiser, unless you're in concierge, get a cabana. And even in concierge, you're not always getting a cabana. So keep that in mind. But I feel like on some level, the groups might make you feel like you need to get your ticket to the Royal Gathering. And this is what I was looking for my princess picture for, because I want to put this on Instagram. There's this idea that if you don't get your tickets to everything, or you don't get your reservations, you're going to miss out, or you're going to lose some of the experience. And I can say that it was like 10 cruises in before we started going to, not 10 cruises, like 6 cruises or something before we started going to Palo at all. And before we started like doing these extra events. And so you can have a fabulous time on your Disney cruise without having to do everything and without having to be signed up for everything. And no, your 3-year-old is probably not going to know that she's missing the Princess Gathering because she's not going to know about it. And there's princesses that you can go and meet like before dinner and after dinner. And so I just want to warn people, you're not missing, your cruise is not going to be ruined if you don't get every ticket to everything and every reservation. And that's my only sort of criticism with the Facebook groups, is everybody makes everything seem like such a big deal. It's not always that. Some things are important, right? And like, I totally get it, where there's somebody's famous favorite princess and they're, you got to try to meet them. I get that. But like every single little thing, you don't have to try to do it all. And that's my only caution for people with the Facebook group. I'm sure that was a little longer answer than you wanted, but
No, that's a good point. We had a moderator of our group that the cruise that didn't even go to Greece, or that didn't sail because of COVID. But oh my gosh, she made me anxious because she was like a planner to the nth degree and had everything planned out like a year ahead of time as far as what they were doing each minute of the day. And she was posting this stuff, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't even started looking at flights yet, and she's already got what she's wearing on day 2. So to your point. But I think, like you said, filter it, and you can get a lot of good information out of it. It sounds like it helped you guys, John.
Yeah, it was good, and there was none of that. It was all pretty relaxed.
Good. Well, from there, let's turn to your final stop, the port of Le Havre in northern France. It's kind of like the French equivalent of Warnemünde in Germany. Warnemünde is the nearest port to Berlin. Le Havre is the same for Paris. In both cases, it's a long journey to get to Berlin, basically 3 hours each way. Did a lot of people head off to Paris?
Oh, yeah, they sure did. And plenty of them didn't come back.
Oh, no.
For real?
So deliberately, I mean, they didn't just disappear. So it was kind of strange because it was the final day of the cruise. If you wanted to visit Paris or Disneyland Paris after the cruise, the obvious choice was just to leave the cruise a day early. Because why would you bother going to 3 hours to Paris, come all the way back to the ship just for the final night to get off in Southampton in England and then have to go all the way back to Paris? That made no sense. So several hundred people had arranged with Disney to do just that, to get off the cruise a day early. So we watched all these people on that morning just heading off with all their luggage.
It's a process, though, everybody. You have to get permission. You can't just not return. There's immigration issues with doing that. Disney can't just let you off. It all has to be prearranged. So just make sure you work that out. Dave and I actually did this like 12 years ago when we went on a European cruise, and he didn't have enough vacation time for the whole cruise. So he just left early, and I finished it was like something we booked last minute, whatever. But so we had to get all this permission. And on some cruises, I know right after the restart, they were not letting people alter their process at all, but it's really good to know that they will let you. But it is a process. You have to plan in advance. You have to get approval. And it's, again, an immigration issue. You can't just like show up in a country. They're going to be like, how did you get here? Like what happened?
Yeah, exactly. But it was you're right, and that's important to say. But it was the smart call if that's how you wanted to end your vacation. So lots and lots of people did that. But there was a whole fleet of buses heading off on day trips, both to Paris and to the theme park. And the all aboard time that day wasn't until 11 p.m. It was a long day, as it's a long day if you go to Berlin from Warnemünde. But you do get a decent chunk of time in the city. Or in the theme parks if you choose to visit the two theme parks at Disneyland Paris. But dinner on that final night was really quiet, super quiet. I'm going to say maybe 40% occupied, maybe even less than that in the dining rooms. And I felt really sorry for the juggler who was performing in the Walt Disney Theatre on that final night because the crowd was tiny.
That night, your cruise ended the next morning, or did you have a sea day?
No, it ended the next morning.
Oh, wow.
If you got back at 11 p.m. and then you had to do all your packing,
my God,
that's a lot of stress.
So obviously you guys didn't go to Paris. I know you've been there before. What did you guys do, John?
Yeah, well, I used to live there. So, yeah, I've been there before. Yeah, that's right. We didn't go to Paris. For us, that would have been just too long a day, and there are easier ways for us to get to Paris if we wanted to go. So there are things to do in the Le Havre area if you choose to stay in that area. The Normandy beaches are not too far away if you're interested in your World War II history. The town of Le Havre itself doesn't have too much to offer, mostly because it was really heavily bombed in World War II by the British. Actually, we bombed it because it was still a German stronghold towards the end of the Second World War. So there's not really any old buildings left. Sadly, they were all destroyed. So we chose to visit the nearby port of Honfleur, which is about half an hour away. Disney do offer their excursions there, but we booked our own transport via a local operator called B-Bus, B-E-E, as in Buzzy Bee, B-Bus. And the way it works is we departed at 11 a.m. from the town centre. So we got the shuttle bus into the town, jumped on the bus at 11 o'clock. We had about 3 hours in Honfleur before making our way back. And on the way back, they dropped us right back at the ship, which was really good. The bus had a guide on board who gave us just some snippets of local history as we did that ride across to Honfleur. It's a place I'd never been to before, but it's absolutely lovely. I was really surprised. I thought it was beautiful. It's an old fishing port, timber-framed houses on 3 sides of the port. It also has the largest wooden church in France with a separate bell tower and its own little building next door. Beautiful, beautiful town. It's very touristy. It's popular with the Parisians, so lots of people from Paris go there for their holidays. Many, many restaurants to choose from. You could spend hours looking around the shops, art galleries of all kinds, lots of pottery and all sorts of local arts and crafts. Loved it. My only word of caution is that it does cater mainly for the French tourist market. So you need to be a bit brave. All the kind of menus at the restaurants are in French. You've got to be a bit brave and dive in. But we thought it was great. Loved Honfleur. Very happily go back and wander around for a couple of days.
Just remember escargot, right, Christy? That's all you need to know.
It's not what I need to know. You and Anthony can eat all the escargot.
It sounds a little bit like Sorrento, John. Would you kind of characterize it as that as far as kind of tourist? I mean, different. It's obviously.
I mean, it's older than Sorrento. Sorrento doesn't feel really old, does it? Maybe.
No. But I'm just thinking like galleries and shops and restaurants and stuff.
Yeah, but really walkable. I mean, Sorrento's kind of on 2 levels, isn't it? If you want to go down to the beach, you've got to go down that ways from where the central bit is.
Yeah.
Whereas Honfleur, you can walk around it you can walk it in 20 minutes. Obviously, that's not what you do because you stop at all the shops and the galleries and go and have a look. But it's small. It's very, very walkable.
As far as the bus goes, did you do that ahead of time or did you just get off and purchase your ticket then?
No, we booked it ahead of time. Okay. I think it was 80 euros for 4 of us.
Not bad at all. Great way to see Europe, right, Christy?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a great final day. You guys had quite a lot of time on the ship on this cruise too. I know you guys like to get involved in some of the activities, and I can definitely find you, especially with like a lot of the family stuff. What did you guys get up to this time, John?
We do. You know that, Steve. You're right. We're at the same stage as you, though, in that James, who's 14 now, likes to spend a lot of time at Edge. So we don't really see much of him at all. He won a bunch of stuff at Edge this time. He won a water bottle, he won a baseball cap, a backpack, some sunglasses, mostly racing Mario Kart, but they did loads of other activities. They did a really cool flash mob that they'd spent some time preparing at the end of the pirate deck party. They all flash mobbed that. That was good. That was good fun. So he loved Edge this year. He got in a really good group. And we basically didn't really see him other than at meal times. That was it. He didn't even come to the shows at all in the evening with us. He was just off doing his own thing. Sam's a bit different. Sam's 17. He prefers to hang out with us. He doesn't really like the vibe of vibe. It's not his thing. Although he does go off and do his own thing as well. He had a few sessions on the aqueduct where he just went and rode the aqueduct, or just went in, hung out in one of the pools for a bit. So we did a load of stuff on the ship. James did manage to join us for something called the Mickey 200, which is, I guess you guys probably haven't done that. Christy, you should definitely go and do it. So where you build a race car out of a vegetable and you race against other families. We came second in the closest photo finish ever. There was high drama. I will say to the day of my death that we won, but apparently we didn't. So that was cool. You should go and race a carrot, Christy. Racing a carrot's cool.
Okay.
We did a few trivias. You can be super proud of us, Steve. We won the Disney Cruise Line trivia, and we've got the Pluto medals. I meant to wear the medal. I forgot. I'm sorry, but we won one of the new medals, so that was really cool. We watch quite a lot of game shows now. We do participate if they need people, but we're kind of not first in line anymore. So, but we did participate. I was throwing ping pong balls into glass cups and all sorts of crazy stuff. Match Your Mate was hilarious. As always, Sam did come and do some adult things with us, even though he's only 17, because he's tall enough to get away with it. We didn't let him come to Match Your Mate, but it was really funny. And we stayed up for quite a lot of the late night adult only activities this year. We did some 70s, 80s pop stuff. I think if we'd been in a team with you and Wake, Steve, we might have done really well with our combined knowledge, but we tended to struggle a bit. There was a huge crowd for Diaper Dash. Racing babies is hilarious. It's just great. So we watched that. We attended a couple of Anyone Can Cook sessions. Caroline did an animation class for the obligatory how to draw a Mickey Mouse thing. And then coming back to the Facebook group, a lady on the Facebook group last year on our Iceland cruise organised an unofficial 5K event on the ship, which we did last year. Same lady was on the cruise this year, organised it again. So about 150 of us signed up for it in advance, sent our money across so she could buy some medals, and then we all did it on the first sea day. So there's a whole heap of us just walking around deck 4 to do our 5K. So that was cool. Really enjoyed that. What else did we do? I know
saw pictures of that from some, random people who shared it on social media. That's super cool.
It is cool. It was good to do. So what else do we do? I know you like the violinist Jordan Caswell, Steve. He's been on the show, hasn't he? You did a show for that
episode really quick.
So he was back on. It was his first week back on a Disney ship this season. So I sat and watched one of his sets for an hour. He's super talented. He's a really nice guy as well. So I really enjoyed that. So I've just given you a long list. I'm sure it sounds like we were always doing something. And we were busy, but I think we found a really good mix this time of getting involved and doing things, but we never felt like we were rushing about. I spent plenty of time out on the veranda reading a book. So we had a good balance, I think.
Well, that sounds perfect. Yeah, Jordan just got back on like you said. So you can follow him on Instagram, and he posts a lot of his music on there as well. He's just amazing. I hope to eventually see him again as well. He's so talented, playing so many different genres of music, I guess, too. So how about the evening shows? Did you still go to those?
We do still go to those. As I said, James doesn't really join us anymore.
Hold on. Let's go back to that for a second. Just pause for a sec. So it looks like Jordan was on episode 258. So you can find it on our website, dclpodcast.com. And actually now, if you just type in 258 in the search that Lake added for us, you should be able to pull it up. But it's called An Interview with Jordan Caswell, violinist. Yeah, so you can find it that way.
great backstory to how he got into music as well with that interview. So
Mhm.
how about the main shows, John? Do you guys still go to those?
Yep. So there was the usual mix. We had a magician, we had a ventriloquist, a juggler. Most of those we'd seen before on various cruises. They were all really good. And then for the Broadway style shows, Golden Mickey's was new for us. I'd rate it as just okay. Dave Christie on your Alaska show, I think he said it best when he called it weird and a bunch of things. I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
And I think that's right. I didn't really get it. It didn't really engage me. And it kind of was just a bit weird. Yeah, I think he said normally when Disney do that sort of thing, they make a bit more of an effort and try and make it make sense a little bit at least. So Golden Mickey's, I'm glad I did it. I probably wouldn't be keen to go and see it again. Beauty and the Beast was great, really excellent. Loved Beauty and the Beast. It was really good. And we had Believe. I know that's not to everyone's taste, Believe. I enjoyed it. It does have an adult playing a small child, but actually it's the dad who's the main character, not the child. So perhaps it would maybe even pass Nova's test. I'm not sure, but I enjoyed Believe. And I thought the cast, the show cast, I thought they were really excellent this year. So yep, we did the evening shows.
All right, let's finish with dining. Did anything stand out on your cruise?
We enjoyed the food a lot. I'm not a big foodie. And I think in our early cruises, I was never blown away by the food on the ships. But it seems since they've been sailing again since the pandemic, for some reason, the quality of the food seems to have gone up a notch for me. So we enjoyed the food a lot this time. And I think part of it is perhaps we've just maybe got a bit better at knowing which are the good dishes and which are the ones to avoid, because that was we've done so many cruises now. We kind of didn't maybe have the best main server this time. Normally the serving teams are fantastic. We were a bit unlucky this time. He was a bit monosyllabic with us. Don't really know why that was. I think maybe he was coming to the end of his contract. He was just a bit tired, but that's a minor thing. That doesn't really matter. So we did eat in the main dining rooms every night, bar one when we ate up on the deck. But we ate well. We enjoyed the food.
I think I've really come to appreciate their recommendations. If you get a good serving team, as far as, try this, don't try that. What do you think, Christy?
Definitely take their recommendations. It's a little bit tough because you have to be more of an adventurous eater to just eat whatever the recommendation is. Like our family's going to eat the beef basically every day. Sometimes we'll have a pork, sometimes we'll have a chicken, but we're not going to any of the seafood. And so, I think seafood, Disney can really shine there, and we wish we liked it, but we don't. So it limits, right? Unless the recommendation is the beef dish of the day, we don't usually get it.
We're pretty adventurous. Sam eats the escargot every time. I eat a lot of seafood as well. So we're happy to try a variety of things. But we know that pasta dish with the really fishy sauce isn't good. So we know there are some things just not to order.
Well, unfortunately, as you said, did you guys pack before or that evening? Just out of curiosity, as far as, since this is the last night of your cruise, and then
we don't do the putting our luggage outside the cabin door at all.
Okay,
we take our own. So we kind of packed. We kind of packed a bit in the morning. So yeah, okay. There was no pressure for us.
And did you go to the breakfast that morning? I didn't even ask. Did you have early or late?
We have early still.
Early. Okay.
So we have early. Yeah. We went up to Cabanas on the final morning.
Yeah. Way too early to get up there. So.
Yeah. And remember, Cabanas is open until 8:30, but at 8:30, they close that curtain sharp, but they don't ever advertise anywhere on the ship that Cabanas is open the last day. So just remember, you don't have to go to your sit-down dining at either 6:45 or whatever the early time is, or the late one at 8:15. You can just go up to Cabanas and eat your breakfast starting from like 6 or something until 8:30 sharp.
6:30, I think.
There you go.
I think 6:30. But it does tell you on the app, Christy. It's not a complete secret, but then you don't use the app, so.
Hey.
Yes, I love it.
Fine. It could tell me on a piece of paper that they leave, but I don't even think they ever told us on the piece of paper, frankly. So
I Thanks for being on my side, John. I do appreciate that. Well, okay, I don't want to get into the minutia of this, but debarkation in Southampton, you guys leave from Barcelona, so going from the EU to England, how was that? Was there anything that you had to do as far as customs or immigration?
Debarkation itself on that final morning was really easy, but immigration is a bit of a hassle sometimes in Europe. So UK immigration were on the ship itself, and they were on for a number of days because there was this process that we had to go to the Walt Disney Theatre on the first sea day to show our passports, and it was incredibly badly organized. I just don't think they appreciated how long it would take to get 3,800 people through the whole theatre to show our passports. So we were all given time slots based on what deck we were on, and we went and joined the line at one point. It was ridiculous. We figured we were going to be there for hours, so we just said, we're not doing this, we're just ignoring it, we're not playing your game. And they didn't get through everybody first time around, so the immigration guys stayed on board and they did more slots on the second sea day. So there are some immigration hoops to jump through, and you just got to suck it up and do it. But it does mean that when you arrive at Southampton or in England, it's done, it's finished. You can just walk off the ship and there's no checks, and everybody seemed pretty chilled, probably other than us who didn't play.
So, like, the entire family have to go?
Yep.
Oh my God. Could you
Everybody.
imagine if you had little kids
Yep.
and you're standing there for hours?
So the line when we went down on the first sea day afternoon, maybe 3:00, was the whole length of the ship from the theatre back to whatever is at the aft end of deck 3, cabana. Animated talent? Animators, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
The whole length.
Oh my gosh.
So, and it wasn't just the line. The theatre was also full of people sat waiting. So we were like, no way, this is just not happening.
Good for you.
Well, before we kind of finish up this, for people that are sailing on either this cruise or into Southampton, because there are a lot of cruises, our cruise next year leaves out of Southampton. Getting to and from Southampton, from London, from Heathrow, John, how long does that take? Any thoughts as far as, getting off the ship? Is that going to be easy to catch an afternoon flight from Southampton, do you think?
So Disney do transfers, obviously, straight up to Heathrow.
And they're very reasonable, in my opinion. I just was quoting them for a client, and they're like $60.
Yeah, it's maybe a 90-minute drive, something like that. But if you want, you can get, the main Southampton train station's about a 15-minute walk from where the ship docks, maybe 20 minutes, and then you can get the train direct up into central London. So if you then wanted to get back out to Heathrow or to Gatwick, you could. So Southampton's pretty accessible. If you want to go into London, Southampton's really accessible.
There's also a transfer Disney does to their post-stay hotel.
Yeah.
And you don't, just so you know, you don't have to be staying at the hotel. So you can book that as well. And I felt like that was $60 or $70 too.
The train to get a train up into London's like a couple of hours.
So good options.
I'm going to throw one out. We've got some friends that cruise a lot on Princess out of London, and they use nationalexpress.com. I haven't looked at it yet, but they use that every time they go over there to get them from London Heathrow down to Southampton too. So probably a lot of options out there beyond Disney, but obviously you can always use Disney as well, it sounds like. National
Express is kind of the national coach company. So the Greyhound, I guess, would be your equivalent, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's like a scheduled service or something like that you can jump on, I guess. But they've used them a lot and had a lot of luck with them. So maybe check that out. Do your research. So no COVID this year, it sounds like, and you guys had a great time, John. I'm glad that hopefully the COVID monster is behind in the rearview mirror these days for most people. Yep.
No COVID. We really did have a great time. We loved it this year. We always choose a cruise based on the ports first and the ship second. But big bonus for us to be able to sail on the Dream for the first time this year. That was really good. All of the ports were new to us, and with the minor letdown of Vigo, which to be honest is probably our fault because we didn't really explore properly because we were a bit too tired. The ports were awesome, absolutely great. And what I'd say is that, of course, some of the big Mediterranean cities like Rome, like Naples, like Barcelona are going to be great. but there's an incredible amount to see in some of the other lesser known destinations too. I mean, Cadiz is the sort of place you might go to once in a lifetime, but it's worth going to once. If you looked at the 2024 itineraries for Disney, there's a really similar cruise to the one we took that goes next summer, starts in Barcelona, visits Valencia, another city in Spain, goes back to Lisbon, goes back to Vigo, and then it goes to the city of La Coruña in northern Spain. And I'd really recommend that to people. If you want to do something slightly different, a little bit off the beaten track, I think that would be a great cruise. I mean, we thought about going again on that itinerary next year, actually. So yeah, we had an amazing time. We made some great memories.
I think, Christy, a lot of us think, especially from America, you think of the big cities like Rome and Paris and whatnot. And after you go over and do that one time, if you're lucky enough to go over again, as to John's point, I think if you can, venture out to some of the smaller Greek Isles or up into Norway or this one from Barcelona to Southampton, you get to really see a whole different side of Europe that most people don't even think about.
Exactly. Europe is huge and there's plenty to see and tons to see. And I think, frankly, you could go to the same city and see something different every single time, have a different experience every single time. But definitely, it's a good reminder to maybe think outside of the box and not just the main cities that we think of when we, instantly when we think of Europe.
So before we finish up, John, a couple questions for you, I guess. What did you think of the Dream versus the Magic, since you guys have sailed on so many European cruises?
I'm sure we're like most people. Your heart is probably with the first ship you sailed on. So we sailed on the Magic first. I think our heart will always be on the Magic. I love all the ships and they feel really familiar. Doesn't matter whether it's the Dream or the Fantasy. So the slightly bigger ones, or we haven't been on the Wonder or the Wish. So all the Magic. They just feel very, very familiar. There's further to walk on the big ones, to kind of state the obvious, but it does add up. And sometimes you do feel, is this corridor ever going to end? Am I going to get somewhere at the end of this? So I love them all. I'd happily set foot back on any of them tomorrow if you gave me the opportunity. But our heart's probably always with the Magic.
Okay. Christy, any final questions about this cruise?
Well, yeah. Did you guys play mini golf?
Yes, we did.
I love that there is the cutest little mini golf on the Fantasy and the Dream on the top deck, and it's included, and it's just a fun little course. My only little maybe criticism, if anything, is that it is tricky if you're left-handed to get to some of those shots. Like Blake is like standing on top of like the edge because there's like the starting point of where to hit the ball. So I guess that's my only, they didn't think about the little lefties, but I love that there's mini golf included. Did your whole family play?
Yeah, we loved it. I think we went on the afternoon of the Vigo day and there was nobody up there. Nobody, nice. Just all to ourselves. It was lovely.
And you get good views and...
Yep. Really enjoyed it.
The other thing I think I just want to ask you, on the sea days, was it windy up above? Because I don't feel like you're traveling as far, so they probably don't have to push the ship as fast between these different ports. Do you remember? I
don't think it was super windy. Certainly when we were stood on deck going through the Straits of Gibraltar, it wasn't. I went on there was one day when it was cold and kind of rainy, and it was the second sea day. So you'd think it would be really crowded up on the decks. So I think the aqueduct opened at like 1:00 in the afternoon, and Sam and I went up there maybe 1:30, expecting there to be this huge line. Nobody, absolutely nobody. We literally just walked straight up, straight on, round, back up, on again, and it was cold. It really was cold. It got slightly less cold the second time. So we were kind of lucky with the weather. It was mostly pretty nice, but there was one day when it was cold. But yeah, it gives you the opportunity to get on the aqueduct without standing in a line.
And to finish up, I guess we need to maybe start the rumor. Maybe you could be our European person starting the rumor that the Treasure is actually going to Europe and it's opening season. What are your thoughts about the Treasure, John? What are you excited about? I know you have to have a couple of thoughts.
I believe strongly you've got to keep changing it up all the time. You can't have ships that are all identical. I haven't been on the Wish, but obviously I've heard lots of the criticisms as the design's kind of a bit kooky. And so whether they can put some of that right on the Treasure, I'm not sure. I guess some of that infrastructure is just set, isn't it? It'll just be what it'll be. But if they can do Moana or Coco or some of those things, just to freshen it up and make it appeal to a slightly different crowd, then I think that's really important that they do that. So I'm really hopeful. I'd love to go to Lighthouse Point, and that wasn't what you asked, but I'd love to go to Lighthouse Point, and obviously the Treasure will go there in due course, I guess. So I think Disney are probably doing enough that's exciting and interesting. So yeah, looking forward to it. Whether we'll get to come, don't know. Depends on where it's going to be, doesn't it?
It's going to be out of Port Canaveral.
Yeah. I think we're planning to come back to Florida next summer. No, the summer after 2025 is, I think, our next planned trip to Florida. So we'll try and get on something out of Port Canaveral. Not sure what.
Plenty of time to decide that. So what is next for you guys' future, John? Anything planned for next year? Like a lot of things with Sam going to school.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't booked another cruise at the moment just because Sam finishes school next summer and we'll be planning all the university college things. So we'll have a really busy summer next summer. So we just need to keep it flexible. We might book something last minute, but probably for the first time in a very long time, we don't have a Disney cruise booked.
Well, that's okay. Like you said, you can always be flexible and maybe jump on something last minute if something pops up or time works out for it. And there's always a lot of other things to do as well, besides cruising, even though we are a cruising podcast. A lot of things out there to do. Well, Christy, any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
I don't think so. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Well, thank you so much, John, for coming on and sharing your family's experiences. Always good to catch up with you. Hopefully we will see you sometime soon on a cruise, and I will mark it down that you guys are coming to Florida in 2025. We'll try and maybe see if we can figure out a way to meet up with you guys for a couple of days or something. So all the best to your Lionesses. By the time this comes out, we'll either know that they are the world champs or bowed out sometime before, but just enjoy the ride.
Thank you. That's very kind. Fingers crossed.
All right. All the best.
Keep up the good work, guys.
Yeah. Say hi to Caroline and the boys for us, and we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank John for coming on. Really do appreciate each and every time he's been on. He's been such a huge part of our show, and I always enjoy his takes and the experiences that he and his family get to experience when they go on those European cruises. And unfortunately, his Lionesses did not win this year, but they came in second, and that's not too shabby in the world of women's world soccer. So congratulations to the Lionesses as well. Well, if you're enjoying this show and you know others who would enjoy it as well, we sure would appreciate it if you'd pass it along. That helps us get a little bit better known in the Disney cruising, and just the Disney travel podcasting genre as well. If you have time to go over to iTunes and leave us a review, we sure do appreciate it. Each and every one of you who've taken time to do that. Once again, that helps get the word out. As always, we'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. They help bring this show to you each and every week ad-free. If you'd like to find out more information on how you can support this show, you can go to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. Well, we are moving into the fall. Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party has started down in Walt Disney World. Oogie Boogie Bash is coming up at Disneyland. And Howling in the High Seas is setting sail with Disney Cruise Line. Christy and her family will be sailing on Halloween on the High Seas on the Wish, and Anawake and myself will be on the Disney Magic out of San Diego. So look for those episodes coming in the future, discussing all the fun that you can have on board during this Halloween season. Well, if you are headed out to the parks, headed out of Disney Cruise, headed out of Adventures by Disney, or getting ready for a wine and dine weekend and getting those training runs in, on behalf of myself, Steve, Nova, Christy, Lake, and all of us here at the DCL Podcast, we want to wish you to be well, enjoy time with family and friends, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.